Okay, so we can start.
Mm-hmm.
So first we'll take refuge. I go for refuge to the Buddha, the Dharma, the Sangha from now until enlightenment. I'll work for the benefit of all sentient beings. May all beings be happy. I go for refuge to the Buddha, the Dharma, the Sangha from now until enlightenment. I'll work for the benefit of all sentient beings. May all beings be happy. I go for refuge to the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha from now until enlightenment. I'll work for the benefit of all sentient beings. May all beings be happy. Now for mandala, and we can do it in Tibetan. So, Sa shi boki choji meto da rira liji di da gyamba di sangha shingdu mi de buwargi roga nana shingla shuwarsho yidam guru rana mandala kamir tayami. So, welcome to the class. It's going to be the Ganges Mahamudra, but it's going to be a very abbreviated version of that because we only have 5 sessions. And it is a very extensive teaching. For myself, my name is John Bashanaman. I went to India in 1970, was ordained in 1971. I lived basically in India until 1984. I studied with in the Gelugpa lineage. My first teacher being Lama Yeshe. He gave me to his teacher, Geshe Rapton, and then I studied with all the various teachers in Dharamsala, Geshe Darge, Circle Rinpoche, Trichin Rinpoche, Ling Rinpoche, and all the great masters, and many times with the Dalai Lama and such. Then at the end of my 14 years, and that included both, about 10 years worth of teachings and 3 or 4 years worth of retreat. I then returned to Canada. I started a small Dharma center. Lived there for 18 years, and then I've now moved to Mexico. I've been here for 19 years, okay, teaching and such. So, and I'm a layman. I stopped being a monk after 14 years. So, this particular teaching, I want to introduce it in the sense that when I was studying various different texts, I of course, we have the Entering the Middle Way by Chandrakirti, and then we have Aryadeva and many other texts that we have. But this one was really very beautiful. It was so concise. It's of course a little bit more in the tantric lineage, but it doesn't focus on the tantricism. Rather, it's just a very good presentation. And so I wanted that, and within our lineage, I didn't find anybody that had it because I needed to get the transmission of it. So. And was Thunder Rinpoche was in Canada. Sorry, a second. Sorry, this dog is stupid or something. Let me turn it off. It's the best thing to do. Great thing to cut it. There we go. Off. So invasive. Okay, so. Almost I want to restart so the guy could cut it properly. Anyway, so maybe he can just cut that section out. Okay, whoever's a genius with videos. Okay, so I wanted to get that particular teaching, and Thunder Rinpoche, of course, the very famous Kargyupa Lama, had the lineage and actually teaches it regularly, and there's you can find it online, videos and everything. And so I also found out that Thunder Rinpoche and Lama Yeshe were very close friends when they were in Boxa as refugees. In fact, Lama Yeshe did a lot of retreats, so I heard, with Thunder Rinpoche, or with their input. So I thought, well, that's perfect because there's some connection there. So I went to. He was in Vancouver, or he arrived in Vancouver. I made an appointment to see him. I had the text, so. I arrived and made 3 prostrations. Although I did speak Tibetan fluently, he had a translator there. And again, Tibetan, there's the Kampa way of talking. There's Amdo, and then there's Usung. I tend to be more Usung. So anyway, there was a bit of complication in understanding what I wanted, and so the translator was there. So we both basically presented it, and I said I'd really like the transmission of this, please. And it's sort of funny because the translator didn't get it. I mean, he just thought I was some crazy Western person, so whatever. So he started to do something, and I said, damn it, this guy's not understanding me. So I turned around, and in Tibetan, I just started off doing refuge. I did the mandala offering, and I handed him the text. And of course, Thangpa Rinpoche got it, so that was great. So he sat down and recited the text for me, gave me the transmission, asked me a few questions, and then I did dedication prayer, and I left. So I did get the authentic transmission, which is very important. I would recommend that if you are, well, let's say you have the opportunity, getting transmissions of teachings and such is quite valuable. Of course, I'm a teacher, so I certainly have to have that. But even as just a practitioner, it's good to get, the proper lineage and transmission of the teaching. So that's the first thing, just to say that, okay, I do have lineage on this and such. But the second point is, traditionally, this is taught as a mind-only school, Chittamantran school philosophy. And if you look at, for example, Thangpa Rinpoche's commentaries, it'll present that point of view and even refer a little bit to Madhyamika. But I would like to do something that's a little bit, let's say, more from our Western point of view and such. And it will be based on Buddhist philosophy, but I'd like to just sort of change it a little bit. So in the text, and of course, please, have a good motivation. We are in Mahayana Buddhism. We are bodhisattvas, which means that it's not just about our personal liberation or our personal realizations and understandings. We're trying to be of benefit, to try to be of greater benefit to the people in immediate life, and of course, in all sentient beings. So with a good motivation, that's why I'm attending this class. It's a Mahayana class and such. So in regards to the way that I'd like to do it, I did, or in the material to be accessed, and I have it here online, and maybe you guys don't have it, but it's available on your material. We have a general overview of Buddhist schools of philosophy: Vaibhasika, Svatantrikas, Yogacarya, and Madhyamika. And I'm not going into all the little details of them. I'm just doing a generalization of that, because I think in some ways it's important that we don't get too, let's say, philosophical about it, that rather we are just looking at like what was happening. Because if we go back 2,500 years, okay, that's 500 years before Jesus Christ, in India, they talked about atoms. I mean, I think that's inconceivable. Like, I mean, wow. I mean, look at us, if you look around the room, you don't see atoms. You see walls and houses and doors and windows, and they somehow understood the idea of atoms and such. So that's, I mean, just that in itself is incredible. And the Vaibhasikas and Sautantrikas put a lot of emphasis on that. So first off, just that, wow, that's impressive. So second point, though, is that these were meditators. They weren't, scholars or scientific people, but they had some, philosophy, some ideas about life, and they got it from sitting under a tree or maybe in a monastery, whatever. And they did a lot of meditation and such, and they came to these understandings, of which we then have the four principal schools: Vaibhasika, Sautantrika, Yogacarya, and Madhyamika. Okay, so that's the first thing, is just that. Now, the second point is, I would like to point out that, I studied this, 50 years ago with Geshe Ngawang Dargay and actually with Geshe Rapton. And of course, it's a very official scholastic presentation, which is great. I learned a lot and I thought about it. They do sort of, like, you might say, poo-poo the Vaibhasikas and Sautantrikas, as saying, oh, they're not very profound. But now, many, many years later, and I sort of went back and looked at them, and I thought they were really profound. I can guarantee you that all of us in this audience would not think of the world as being of atoms unless we had an education of that. We just sort of houses and doors and windows and the sky and the wind and the rain. So first off, they were really, geniuses in many ways. And my main point is that both, I'd say, most of the modernly educated world fall in the category of being a Vaibhasika or Sautantrika. Not that they would particularly understand it as something as a path to liberation, but we all understand that the world's just a whole bunch of atoms vibrating, atoms, molecules, and things like that. All of us know that. So that is the Vaibhasika and Sautantrika point of view. And so therefore, It's not, it is common knowledge. Now, we don't think of the implications of it. We just say, oh yeah, the world's just a bunch of atoms. Yeah, okay, whatever. I mean, and then we pollute the hell out of the world, never understanding interdependence and stuff. I mean, we're slowly having to sort of realize that, and you might say pull up our socks a bit on realizing that. But the bottom line is that we all just think, well, yeah, it's a bunch of playing of atoms, and there's oxygen and nitrogen in the atmosphere. I'm breathing that, and and whatever. So we actually are Vaibhasikas and Sautantrikas. Okay. Now Vaibhasika, again, and it's in the handout, or it's in the text that you can check. I mean, again, not getting into the details of does time exist, does the past exist, does the future? There's lots of philosophy there. We're just talking about being a meditator. Okay, and so let's say take a Vaibhasika, they're just sitting there and they say it's all just vibrating atoms. The external world is nothing but vibrating atoms. And my mind is the short mind moments. And I think they said there was 60 mind moments in a second or something like that, which agreeing with that thing. Now, I should actually take a step back and say, what is the basis of their analysis? And this is going to be very important in the presentation over the next 4 weeks. Okay, the basis of the practice is the 5 aggregates. Okay, so if you're going to talk about reality, we're talking about the 5 aggregates: form, feeling, perceptions, thoughts, and consciousness. Okay, those are the 5 aggregates. Maybe they're named a little bit differently sometimes, but basically that's it. Now, when you talk of form, form is everything physical. So when we talk of the aggregate of form, it's not just your body, it's also the world around you. And then this is, I mean, this is standard, well, let's say when you study the 5 aggregates, that the form aggregate is considered to be all forms, all physical stuff. That's really important. Okay, and that we'll come up with that when we move to the second component. But the first thing is that, okay, form, me in this room, in this part of the country that I'm in this world, in our solar system, that's all concluded in form. The other 4 aggregates are mind. Okay, so when you talk about a Buddhist point of view, looking at what's happening, what's the nature of the universe, they have the 5 aggregates. Okay, everything physical, with whatever in the universe. Okay, and then the 4 components of the mind, which is feelings. Happy feelings, sad feelings, and indifference, perceptions of objects, then thoughts, basically, something called compositional factors and stuff like that. But it's basically thoughts. Alex Berzin said it really clearly. He just said it's just everything about how you put your mind together. Okay. And then finally consciousness, which is the energy. And again, you can subdivide that. I mean, there's 6 consciousnesses and such like that, which we'll get into in a second. But the point is that that's 4 of the mind and 1 of just everything physical. Now, get that really clearly in your mind, because when we're going to move into the philosophies, and then we're going to move into the Mahamudra from the Ganges point of view, that's going to be important. So first off, then the Vaibhasikas. Physically, I'm just a whole bunch of atoms, and this whole universe around me. I mean, air, all of that, all atoms, and we're educated. I mean, I don't know if they, that they really thought about, that oxygen, or the atmosphere is oxygen and nitrogen, a bunch of other gases and this and that. And again, I'm not a scientist, but when you inhale, there's this incredible miracle in your body that your lungs know how to take out the oxygen and get rid of all the bad gases and stuff like that. And when you exhale, like that, I mean, it's just unbelievable, really, when you think about it, just the profundity of just taking a breath, but what really is going on physically. And then that transfers from the tissue of the lungs into the, the molecules or whatever, of the blood, joins with those, and then it transfers into this big pump, which is your heart. And of course, that's being fed by other blood vessels and such like that. So when you sit there and you say, I am nothing but a whole bunch of atoms, they do have karma. As a Vaibhasika, you believe in karma. So you could say there's the karma of all of the things that are going on. Now, they don't go to interdependence, but they do talk about karma, continuity of causes and circumstances. So a breath is a cause and a circumstance as my body, and then the result is I've got life. Okay, so that's their look at the thing. Now, that's Yeah, all this physical world, the atmosphere, the sun, everything, and your body, all in that category, form. Okay, feelings. Okay, so I just touched on that. What's interesting is that for Tibetans, and again, this comes out of, I mean, nowadays they basically use the word, but emotions. If you were talking to a Tibetan prior, well, to the one this day Tibetan that didn't have anything else, they wouldn't get the word emotion. They would talk about feelings and thoughts being mixed. They separate the two. We don't. We say, oh, I'm emotional. No, what is emotional for a Tibetan, or well, let's say for a Buddhist, okay, is I'm thinking a certain way and I'm having a certain feeling. So if I'm emotional happy, then I'm having happy thoughts and happy feelings, okay, or I'm having positive thoughts, okay. And if I'm depressed, I'm thinking in terms negatively and I'm having a lot of negative feelings, and put those two together and we call it an emotion, okay. But strictly speaking, it doesn't work in Buddhism. You have thoughts and you have feelings, and you separate the two, which can be quite insightful. I mean, nowadays, I think clinical psychology has figured that out a long time ago. They don't quite use those words, but they do, that, check up the way you're thinking about stuff. But anyway, coming back to, we're Buddhists, we're meditators, and so we, again, as a Vivasaka, I'm sitting in this universe of atoms all interplaying with causes and circumstances and results, karma, okay, that's the physical universe. And then my mind is the shortest mind moments, which has feelings, perceptions, thoughts, and consciousness. Okay, so that's Vivasaka. And that's what they wouldn't actually, because they're Vivasaka, would not focus on the physical reality. They would just focus on mind, that the mind is these short little moments. And when you understand that, then you break up this sense of existence and you get liberated, and their commentary would be is that if a candle burns out, where did the candle flame go? Did it go north, south, east, or west? No, it ceased to have the circumstances for its production. Okay, so I mean, let's not get philosophical, but the point is that's their liberation. The Swatantrikas were a little bit more sophisticated. They said, well, yeah, okay, there's yes, there's the smallest atoms, and that's an ultimate reality. I'm sorry, I didn't say that atoms are an ultimate reality. Atom is a thing that just cannot be made smaller. Okay, that's an ultimate reality. Okay, so physical universe, it's smallest atoms. Okay, and then the mind is smallest mind moments, but they add in, but there's perceptions and labeling. So they got a little bit more efficient at what they wanted to talk about. Okay, so they look around, yeah, it's all this huge play of atoms going on outside of me, but then there is labeling to that. Okay, so that's again, the Swatantrika is very similar to Vivasaka's, just a slight upgrade on it. They include the ability to, we say, valid cognition of objects. So that's Swatantrika. Then we move to Mahayana teachings. Okay, that is going to be the Yogacarya and Madhyamika, and again, not all the subdivisions of those, just the key terminology. Okay, now one thing that's interesting is when you study Mahayana, they don't put emphasis initially on the analysis of the nature of the mind. They talk about the analysis of the nature of phenomena. Why? Because we're bodhisattvas. We work for the benefit of sentient beings. It's not just about getting personally liberated. If you want personal liberation, you focus on the nature of the mind, you unravel it, or you liberate yourself from your delusions, your misunderstanding, and then you have personal liberation. But you don't have anything else. I mean, just that's it. You personally liberate your consciousness. Whereas Mahayana work for the benefit of sentient beings. So a Mahayana practitioner works on the nature of phenomena, which would include your body. Okay, there's phenomena. Okay, the phenomena, which is your body. And they analyze that because if you deconstruct, so to speak, or realize the nature of phenomena, when you can work with sentient beings better. It's not just about you, personal liberation. It's about, well, I'm in this universe. Okay, now that's where then we get into the philosophy. Okay, so the Yogacarya, mind-only school, Yogacarya school. Okay, what's their philosophy? Okay, basically, and again, we can look at that. I have a little thing here. Let's just pull that up. Okay, Two truths. Okay, I'm sorry. And for the two previous things, both relative and ultimate are truly existent. Okay, so there really is only small atoms and there really is only small mind moments, and that's it. That's reality. Okay, when you get to the Yogacarya, relative truth is false. That means this phenomenal universe is false, but ultimate truth, the nature, understanding the nature of reality, is a truth. It is an ultimate truth. It is a reality. Okay, so in that relative truth, it says has three qualities. Okay, the thing is, all phenomena are a reflection of your mind. So mind-only school is everything you're seeing going on around you, you only, you could say, understand it because it's a reflection of your mind. And the funny thing is that even if there's something you don't understand, when you see it, you still label it, from your mind side of, oh, I don't understand. So even thing you didn't know or didn't see is still labeled. Okay, it's still just a reflection of your mind, but it's labeled with, I wonder what that is. Okay, so but come back to everything is a reflection of your mind. Now, what's really incredible with this, because it is Madhyamika philosophy, is that you gain ownership of your experience. It's an incredible shift. It's like suddenly, wow, okay, everything's a reflection of my mind. So then you get into that I'm deluded, that objects exist externally. Now, you might then say, well, what about objects? Well, that's the second point. Everything is other powered. So when you look at phenomena we're going on around you, for example, outside my window here, I can see a tree. Well, the tree isn't self-existent. It is other powered. It's powered by the sun and the sky and the soil that it's in and the water that's nurturing it and the air around it. The leaves can go and breathe and things like that. So when you look at tree is other powered and it's only a reflection of my mind. So, I mean, again, that's sort of fun because I look at that tree and I don't know what the heck the name of that tree is, but I can label it tree. Somebody who's more knowledgeable might look out the window and say, oh, that's a blah, blah tree, and I don't know, elm or whatever. But the point is, again, their first thing is we think that external things really exist. It's our delusion. That what we're seeing is other powered. And that then the ultimate reality is that it's a non-dualistic perception, that I'm merely only seeing my mind. There's no other thing outside of that. So the third point is non-dualistic mind, and that is the ultimate point of view, a non-dualistic mind understanding existence. Okay, so let's just talk about that just a teeny bit more. Okay, so when you analyze what something is other powered, so what does that mean to you in viewing something? And this is going to play into the Madhyamika school also, is that when you look at something, you divest it of self-existence. So when you look at a tree, you see other powered. So there's not like tree there, unbelievably sort of thing. No, it is other powered. So your mind lets go of isolating tree. It says other powered. And then, okay, then you appreciate, well, the sun and the sunlight, well, it's other powered by other factors. I mean, for example, I mean, we as, modern, thing, we understand there's gases and atomic energies going on in the sun, and it's other powered, and it's powered by atoms and molecules, and then they're other powered by blah, 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 So everything gets broken down into being powered by another, powered by another, powered by another, powered by another. So you divest something of being self-existent. Okay, quite interesting. So again, you look at something, you don't see it as being truly existent. You see it as being other powered, which means you took away the goopy stuff inside of it that somehow made it self-existent. But you use the word other powered. Secondly, you said recognize that actually it's only a reflection of your mind. I mean, there's no reality. I mean, the wall I'm looking at right now doesn't have any reality other than how I'm experiencing it. In this case, I'm looking at the wall of the Dharma Center. Okay, if it wasn't Dharma Center, I'd be looking at a house that's being rented. If it wasn't that, then I don't know. I'm in a house where I shouldn't be. Okay, depending on how I understand it. But the point is that it is that you are only seeing a reflection of your mind. And again, the funny joke on that one is you could say is, when you get involved in a relationship, you're only relating to your projection, isn't it? you know, and then as time passes, you go, oh, well, this person's like this, and oh, this person's like that. You sort of, you might say, discover other facets of them, but your initial attraction is totally a projection. Okay, so it's quite intriguing. You know, I find the Madhyamika philosophy, it actually gives you incredible ownership of your experience, which is unbelievably good. You know, because so often we say, well, why are you like that? And why do you do this? And why are you acting in that funny way? Well, no, they are other powered by other factors. I mean, how they're brought up as a child by their mother and a father, being part of American or Asian culture, blah, blah, blah. I mean, all of those things are all powered by those other things. And those other things are powered by, again, other things. And by other things, again, it's sort of this grand scope of just other powered. And again, it's all just a reflection of my mind. And then the third point is that if you have a non-dualistic perception of things, recognizing that it's just a reflection of your mind, that if it's a proper object is true. Okay, so that they do say that again, but it's just, again, you might say the emphasis is on your mind side. Again, I'm getting a little bit too intellectual about it, and I don't want to do that. I want to keep it simple. So basically, the key things would be everything's a reflection of my mind. And so you put that in place. And then secondly, everything's other powered. And if you understand that correctly, then you have a non-dualistic perception. In this case, should be of valid objects, okay? The ultimate view for them, which is true, is the universe is non-dualistic. It's just my mind, okay? My mind, my experience of things. And if I understand my mind properly, then of course I'm liberated. But again, we're Mahayana, this is a Mahayana school, so they focus on the phenomena, and by understanding the phenomena properly, rather than looking at their sense of self, there's analysis of their personality or their sense of self, which would give them personal liberation. They get a very, very good sense of the flexibility of this universe around them. Okay, they have that right understanding. They can work for the benefit of sentient beings, and then they do understand. They could say, with the clarity of their understanding of phenomena, they can then apply that to their sense of self, and they free themselves. My sense of self is other powered. You know, for me, I'm a Canadian, born in 1950, brought up in the 50s and 60s. These are all other powered phenomena, isn't it? You know, I mean, I grew up with first Elvis Presley. I didn't really know him very much, but Buddy Holly, I just really liked him. But then he died. That's horrible. Okay, and then we got the Rolling Stones and the Beatles and Led Zeppelin and all that. You know, again, it's all that other powered me. Okay, so your analysis of your sense of self is a very interesting thing. Again, it's this great psychology, really, when you look at it that way. Wow, I mean, and then you can put in new things like a better perception, a better understanding, and you can heal yourself. So anyway, main point is that a Mahayana practitioner first analyzes the nature of phenomena, or in this case, from the 5 aggregates form. Okay, then they analyze the 4 aggregates of mind later on to give themselves more abilities and flexibilities and such like that. Okay, so that's the Yogacarya school. And again, I'm not a scholar. I'm not trying to present you the scholar thing, but I'm trying to think of it in terms of some man or woman sitting under a tree meditating, and they came to these understandings, and it's like, wow, they're pretty smart. We then arrive at Madhyamika. And again, I'm not going into the details of the individual things like, Runrik and Shentong or whatever. Okay, we're just talking about Madhyamika. So the 2 truths, both of them, relative and ultimate, are not truly existent. Okay, relative, a valid mind perceiving an object as interdependent and merely labeled. Okay, now, this is interesting because if you took actually other powered, which is a way of labeling things. And so, but rather than that, you just say it's all interdependent. It's actually the same understanding, just with a different perspective or a different word. Okay, so that's interesting, isn't it? Like I'm looking at a tree. The tree is interdependent with the sun and the earth and the water and the seed and the particular minerals in the soil and everything. It's just a vast ocean of interdependence. Again, so phenomena, form, aggregate, all a vast ocean of interdependence, and then merely labeled, which is mind-only school, really. It's just a reflection of my mind. But they don't call it reflection of the mind because that puts too much emphasis on the mind. And that's where you could say the Yogacarya school, from the Madhyamika point of view, is a little bit limited. They say, hey, you've overemphasized the mind. Okay, that's why they have both the two truths are not truly existent. So in the Madhyamika, when they talk about phenomena, it's interdependent and stuff like that. But then they say also, inside of me, I'm interdependent. It's all just merely labeled. There's nothing self-existent, independently existent. Okay, so again, Mahayana practitioner, Madhyamika point of view. Okay, now we're going to use two different words, which are interesting and are a little different than what the Tibetan Lama might say. We're calling relative perspective and ultimate perspective. Okay, so you're trying to break things up and to get some handles on things, some context. So relative perspective is how I'm seeing things relatively. I'm in this vast ocean of interdependence. And of course, it's both external and internal, but the point is it is a vast ocean of interdependence, and it's all just merely labeled, okay? Nothing more than that. And then the ultimate view, it's open like the space of the sky, nothing self-existent, and that's what we're going to talk about when we move into the Ganges Mahamudra. Okay, so that's the ultimate view. Again, so ultimate view, open like the space of the sky, nothing's appearing because it's all of one nature. Relative point of view, I'm in an ocean of interdependence. Now, if you're just going to, let's just drop back to the mind-only school. Okay, relatively, it's all false. I've overemphasized the phenomena. Okay, it's merely a projection of my mind, and I am in a universe of other powered things, relative view. And if I understand that if I understand my non-duality, I've got the right understanding. And the ultimate is my mind. My mind is an ultimate truth. Remember, that's the Madhyamika or the Yogacarya school, mind-only school. Mind is an ultimate truth. It's a non-dualistic mind. Doesn't think of things outside of itself. Anyway, it's intriguing, and it's so shifting from Yogacarya to Madhyamika is actually not that complicated. It's just that when you move to Madhyamika, they say that the mind internally is also just interdependent, empty of self-existence. Whereas in the Yogacarya school, they like to say, well, the mind's real. Okay, so, but again, real with the correct understanding. Okay, now that concludes that part of which I wanted to talk about. So, again, hopefully you're not lost too much, but okay, let's just say I'm in a universe. Okay, where does it go? Relative point of view. I'm in a universe of atoms. Everything's just atoms vibrating. We all understand that. It's just a universe of atoms. Yeah, well, there's labeling in that. Oh, I'm in a universe of other powered phenomena. Again, there's still atoms there, but it's other powered. And it's just a reflection of my mind. Or I'm in a universe of interdependence. Again, there's atoms, but even the atoms are interdependent with their parts and blah, blah, blah. I mean, study a bit of Nagarjuna. Wow, great. So it's just I'm in a universe of interdependence, and it's all complete, absolute, and just mental label. And when I get that, I then have the ultimate view. Okay. And Nagarjuna says, when you understand interdependence, you actually understand the voidness. And when you understand the voidness, you understand interdependence. Now, there's another thing. So this is, I hope you're enjoying this because I got excited about this class. Okay. So next thing is, there's a really interesting thing coming from the Tibetan language. And in the Tibetan language, it works a little bit in English and in Spanish, but it's really central to the Tibetan language, okay? So when you talk about any phenomena, again, we're talking about relative view, okay? Which will then give you a doorway to ultimate view, but we're talking about relative view. Relative view is, if you take any phenomena, I'm gonna take wall, okay? Or door, okay? Whatever. What you have is two syllables. Door, I guess it's one syllable. Anyway, in the Tibetan language, it'd be kampa, okay, kampa. So it's two syllables, kampa. All right, so that thing. Now, in two syllables, you have a consonant and a vowel. Okay, and again, we'll stick with the Tibetan one, but it sort of bridges to English a little bit. Okay, so you have a consonant and a vowel. Like so, we'll say kampa, kampa. Now, what's interesting is if you take any consonant, it cannot be pronounced unless it has a vowel tied to it. A, B, C, D. You cannot say or A without mixing it with a vowel. You can't say B without mixing it with a vowel. This is the Tibetan language, the way it works, okay? And when you study their language, this is what you're taught. So if you take house, kampa, okay, it's got 2 syllables. If you took the kum of it, you have, okay, ka and ma, okay? But you can't say ka without putting a vowel there. You can't say ma without putting a vowel there, okay? So the root of, okay, so you've got a phenomena. It's being labeled by syllables. And if you took the syllable and you looked at that, well, it's got a consonant, or even the thing, but it's got a consonant, but that consonant needs a vowel. And in the Tibetan language, there's A, E, or Dengbo A, Shapku U, Naro O, A, E, whatever. Okay, so there's the vowel sounds. Okay, A, E, O, U. Okay, so those are the things. But if you took them, and this again, the way Tibetan language works is the base of a vowel sound is ah. So if you have then it's just a syllable But if you have E, it's a syllable with a little thing over the top of going which is E. If you have O, it's with a naro on it, O. Okay, so the root of all vowel sounds is and so therefore, in the way that again, if you're taught this properly, all the phenomena that you're identifying in the universe is pervaded by Okay, now it's pervaded, so I might say the most fundamental thing of any phenomena that you identify is pervaded by It's then added to, or it's either A, U. It's added to a consonant, so kam, pa. Okay, it's added to a consonant to give it some expression, and then it's particular to a phenomena, porta, door, whatever. So the thing is that so when you study the language and you look at phenomena again from the Tibetan point of view, you could look at this that the root of everything you're looking at is and then when it gets elaborated a little bit, it turns into a syllable. And the syllables, when they're put together, they're turned into a word, and the word identifies the object. Did you get that a little bit? I hope. Okay. So the thing is the nature of reality. That's their language has the potential of understanding reality. That pervades everything. I talk about air, house, warm, cold. All of those are consonants, or whether they're words, which are syllables, which are then have consonants, which then have a vowel sound to make the consonant have a way to be expressed, and it has the root then of Okay, so that's again, I think, wow, I mean, the Tibetan language in itself, just the way they created it, maybe it applies to Sanskrit, I'm not up on that, but the Tibetan language, it was based on the nature of reality. Very phenomenal. I mean, really, really, really interesting. So again, when you look at things, you can say, I'm just looking at the root of everything I'm looking at is which then can have a turn into a vowel, which then can be mixed with a consonant, which then makes syllables. And then those syllables put together can make a word, and I will label something. Okay. Anyway, just a little bit of a game for your mind, okay, but it's fun. So what we're doing is we're just looking at the philosophies that we're going to use. And in this case, we're going to put emphasis to a little bit more than Madhyamika, although I will bridge back to Chittamantran. But I want to focus on Madhyamika because it is traditionally the main one in the Gelugpa tradition. And I think presented correctly, it can be very insightful. You don't need to think, well, you don't need to make it that there's a Chittamantran and they're different than the Madhyamika. No, just different ways of playing with the things, okay? So I want to do with Madhyamika and interdependence, because that's what I like. And then within interdependence, we're going to use modern understanding. Okay, so this again, I'm setting up, this class is a foundation for all the remaining classes, which were based off the text, okay, the text of the Ganges Mahamudra. So this class is really, really important. This one, you try to get it. So what are the things I've talked about? 5 aggregates, form is your body and everything in this universe, physical, okay? The other four are your mind. That's just get that is the thing. So if I'm talking about how a Buddhist looks at something, they have the five aggregates, and that includes everything. Okay, there's nothing outside of that. Okay, it's just everything. Okay, so form, my body, and everything in this physical universe, and my mind, the four things in my mind. That's the first thing to get. Second thing, how do I understand it? So we're going to stick in Madhyamika for a little while because it's a little bit easier. And so when I'm looking at it, I'm in a universe of interdependence. And this, again, is important because in the Chitta-Mantram philosophy, they do make the mind a little bit independent. Okay, they put something that's got some existence to itself, you know. Madhyamika said, no, it's all just a play of interdependence. So in Madhyamika philosophy, outside phenomena and inside my mind are equal. There's not something that they are equally interdependent. So it's just a little addition. So I'm sitting in this room. I am, again, we're focused now. Remember, we're Mahayanists. We're working for the benefit of sentient beings. The first object we analyze is phenomena, because we're not just going for the nature of the mind and liberating ourselves. We're bodhisattvas. We're trying to be of benefit. Okay, so and actually, I think is Chandra Kurti in his Middle Path, and I might be wrong in quoting this, but he says that when a person understands the nature of reality correctly, they spontaneously become a bodhisattva. Why? Because I'm in a universe of interdependence. If I didn't have my mother and my father, I wouldn't have my body. If I didn't have the sun and the earth and the plants and the food, I wouldn't have my existence. If I didn't have schools and education, I wouldn't understand things. You wouldn't know what I'm talking about right now. It'd be foreign language. Okay, so my existence is a play of interdependence. And then you could say love, happiness, and joy all come from interdependence. You do not experience love unless you have somebody to love, even a pet dog. I mean, whatever. You do not have love. You don't just sit there and say, I have love. I mean, you can focus on the feeling, but you had a spark that got it, which is love of something, somebody. Or maybe it's a concept. It could be that. But the thing is still, your mind dualistically reflects off of something and creates the feeling of love. Joy. I mean, again, you have to have a reference to joy. Joy just doesn't, like I was just sitting here and I go, oh, I'm full of joy. No, it's like, oh, I think of my grandchildren. I have joy. I think of the smile on their face. I have joy. I think of a gift to a beggar on the street and they smile and I have joy. You see, it's interesting, isn't it? So again, Madhyamika point of view, I'm in a universe of interdependence, both physically, you know, in this physical world, everything is just a play of interdependence, and we're all well educated, we all know that. And internally, even my mind is a play of interdependence, okay? But we're going to focus on phenomena because we're Mahayana Bodhisattvas. So in a Mahayana Bodhisattva point of view, we first start analyzing phenomena. Now, traditionally, it would be, does a chariot, let's see, is a car, is it the doors, the wheels, is it the, the fenders, is it the motor, what's a car, and a car has a mere label on all those components. Okay, so that's the traditional one. But I think that we have, because of our education, a really, really good opportunity to do something a little different. We're going to take our body breathing. Okay, now, so just think of it this way, like right now you're sitting in that room, okay, where I am sitting right now, it's about 92 degrees. So it's actually quite hot. I'm actually sweating, because I can't turn on the air conditioning because it's too loud. Okay, the interdependence of air conditioning overwhelms my microphone. Okay, it's all interdependent, yeah. Anyway, so I'm sitting in this room and I'm actually immersed in the atmosphere. I'm a fish in water, except the medium is skinny. This medium is very thin. But move my hands like this, I can feel the air moving around my fingers. So really, you can bridge that actually. You can say, go to a swimming pool, dive in and go down, and if you can, and sink to the bottom or float. And you have that sensation of I'm immersed and I'm floating in it. Well, that's what we're doing right now. It's just that, we're a little bit bottom heavy. I mean, in English, you can say it's like we're the bottom feeders. We're the little crabs and crustaceans that run around eating the garbage on the bottom of the ocean. Yeah, we're the bottom feeders. Anyway, but back to the point is we are immersed in an atmosphere. okay? And we know that. And it's not just any atmosphere. It's got oxygen and nitrogen and what, I don't know what other chemicals and gases it has in it. But the thing is that, and that gives us life, you know. I remember in the James Bond movie, I think it was Goldfinger, they painted an actress with gold paint, you know, I mean, it's just paint, but they painted her with gold paint and she died because her skin couldn't breathe. Isn't that phenomenal? So this proves our skin is an organ. Anyway, but back to the point is, we're looking at, I want to understand the nature of reality. I could do an analysis of a chariot or a car, but no, let's just talk our body. So I'm sitting here and my body's immersed in the atmosphere, okay? And then you can create that sensation. I mean, you can, that cognition, it's a feeling, it's a thing like, I'm immersed, I'm completely immersed. And then, of course, I'm penetrated. Okay, so then you just take a breath. And again, you have to use your imagination a little bit, but then as I breathe in, it goes down my trachea or whatever, you know, and into my lungs and the tissue of my lungs. And like I say, then there's this miracle of transformation of the oxygen getting taken out and the bad gases being given out. And as I exhale, they come out and stuff. And then there's humidity in the lungs. And then that goes into it gets grabbed and pulled out of the tissue of the lungs and pulled towards the heart muscle. And then from the heart muscle, it gets squeezed and it's shot through the body at a certain pressure. I mean, you are a bag under pressure. If you question that, just cut yourself and the blood pops out because you're under pressure. Okay. So again, these are fun thoughts, but this is all reality. Okay. So if you sit there, again, we're Mahayana Bodhisattvas. We're working for the benefit of all sentient beings. We have the context that first we're going to analyze phenomena. Okay. And in analyzing phenomena, we're going to use our body and, you know, it's the way it exists. So it is immersed in the atmosphere. Again, you can feel maybe the heat, maybe you can feel the humidity, maybe you can feel the cold. It depends where you live. Okay, so I'm immersed. I'm like a fish in water. Okay, and then I take a breath. And then that's where, again, because we have modern science and understand so much about how organs, and tissues, and the skin and everything works, we're like a sponge in the ocean. If you took a sponge and you put it down about, you know, a meter into the ocean, the sponge with all the holes, and you squeeze it and stuff, all the water squeezes in and out and stuff like that. That's how we are right now. Granted, we only have these two holes, or three holes up here that, you know, are like the sponge holes, and maybe the ones down below too. But the point is that we're no different than a sponge immersed in the ocean. Okay, we don't have as many holes, but we have that. Okay, and then internally, if one part of my body, just with oxygen, doesn't get oxygen and dies, that's a heart attack. Okay, or you have an Ebola, or you know, whatever. I'm sorry, this is Spanish words, but anyway, you have a stroke. Okay. The point is that generally you could say all your body needs the oxygen. In fact, even your skin is breathing a little bit. You know, we learned that from the James Bond movie. Okay, so literally you are a sponge and you are completely immersed and penetrated, and everything is maybe at a little bit different speeds, but it is doing that. And then if you say, what about the bones? Well, the bones are living. You know, I mean, the bones can grow. And the thing is, if they're not actually affected by oxygen, I don't know about that, but maybe they're affected by the heat of my body. They're interdependent, not self-existent. Okay, and then they've got the grease and the different things that make bones work and all of that. So as you sit there and breathe, you can be completely, in an analysis of phenomena, totally empty of self-existence. Relative point of view, phenomena are appearing. They're merely, my mind is merely labeling them. My lungs feel my thighs, my feet, you know, that, you know, but the point is that it's merely labeled, and I am a fully 100% interdependent phenomena. And you can just sit there and breathe that, and you have Madhyamika point of view just by breathing. You didn't have to do an analysis of a chariot or anything like that. You just had to do that. And then, so then your consciousness gets a really good clarity on, I am 100% interdependent. I am like a sponge in the ocean, water going through all the parts, same thing. Okay, I'm a little, maybe I have different densities of my body that let the oxygen comes out a little bit slower in some places, faster in other, whatever, it doesn't matter. But the point is, see 100% interdependent. And again, I mean, you can move then to the temperature, the humidity, all thing, you know, I mean, if you're in the perfect room, you feel good because your body has nice interdependence with the humidity and the temperature and the quality of the air and whatever else might be there, okay? So that is relative view on the nature of reality. I am 100% interdependent. And in that, your mind can then, if it identifies something, it's merely labeled, because that phenomena can't self-exist. It only exists by its interdependence, and it can be recognized, that's its label, but nothing more than that. So you can sit there for hours just breathing interdependence, relative nature of phenomena. You can say empty of any self-existence, but it's important to say empty of any self-existence, interdependent. That qualifies with Nagarjuna's point of view. Okay, so just I'm breathing, I am immersed, I'm penetrated, I am 100% interdependent. Every part of my body needs the oxygen and all the other factors and whatever else, you know, I needed breakfast, I needed lunch, I need dinner, things like that. I am 100% interdependent. So you just sit there and you breathe that, okay? Now, that is relative perspective. So we're just going to touch on ultimate perspective a little bit, because really you want to have such a vivid experience of relative truth as merely a grand play of interdependence, empty of any independent self-existence. And you can take that from, like, I'm sitting in this room, okay, I've got the atmosphere of the fall season of Mexico, and then outside of that, I've got the tilt of the earth and the sun that's now moving south, you know, and then I've got the solar system and the dynamics of the planets and the gravitational forces, and right now the moon's heading towards new moon, so the tides are a little bit different. This is a huge ocean of interdependence. This is incredible, you know, all I have to do is recognize that, you know, and I mean, and then you could say implication is be a nice person, but we'll talk about that later. That's compassion. Right now, we're talking about the wisdom understanding reality, and we got relative perspective, total 100% interdependence, no self-existence whatsoever. Okay, phenomena are appearing. Okay, I can label them, so you can sort of shift over a little bit to mind-only school there, and you say, well, I'm just seeing things I understand. So you see, the two could work together really, really well. But the point, let's just stick with Madhyamika. I mean, although Chittamantra gives you a lot of personal self-control, or you are the owner of your experience, but we'll do with this Madhyamika, okay? Because it is both internal and external. Like your mind is also interdependent, which again, we're going to move to that later. Right now, we're talking about phenomena. So I'm sitting there in that. Now, that's relative perspective. Now, this is where that little story I told you about how a Tibetan understands their language, that all phenomena are qualified by the letter A. Okay, on the basis of you have then the vowel sounds, and when you put that together with a consonant, you can then pronounce the consonant, and then when you get a consonant, you put a couple of consonants and vowels together, you can then have a syllables, and then you have syllables that create together, and that creates a word, and the word that can be labeled on something. That's the progression of how you understand that. So coming back to that, I'm sitting here, okay, I have relative perspective, I'm in this vast universal ocean of interdependence. They're, you know, just universal. There's no place that stops being interdependent. It's universal, okay? But phenomena are appearing, relative view. Now we move to ultimate view. Well, everything is equally interdependent. It's not that this thing's a little more interdependent than that thing, and so therefore it could stand a little higher. No, everything is completely equal of interdependence, okay, total. Now, that would be the syllable if you want to use that analogy, but I like to think of it as if you took to the color, okay? Now, you know, if I look outside, I see all sorts of shades of color. I see a beige and a brown and a green and a yellow and all sorts of different things like that. But if the whole universe is made one color, not shades of color, one color, everything would disappear, wouldn't it? Everything is white. Everything is white. There's no, you know, the thing I said it, everything would disappear because there's no way to identify one thing because it's all just white. And again, this is an analogy. It's not the perfect example, but it is sort of gives you a bit of an idea to try to say, ultimate point of view is I have now a little bit of the understanding of universal interdependence. Everything is equally universal interdependence. it's like everything became colored white. So nothing can appear more white than something else white. It's all equally white. So everything just disappears in white, okay? Or light, I mean, clear light, okay, if you want to use an example like that sort of thing. And then the analogy for that is open like the space of the sky. Okay, so all phenomena, you could say, evaporate their sense of being independently, self-existently isolated in some way. Because you understand interdependence, they all evaporate and you arrive at just this open space of the sky, okay? So that's ultimate perspective. No phenomena can independently appear because you're understanding reality. Now, the one final thing, because we're at the hour point. So this is actually very good. We're covering the basics. You get this stuff down and you're going to be doing really good for the rest of it, okay? So the next section is just, okay, space. Now, I'm going to use an example. Here's my coffee cup. Okay, so let's say coffee cup is the planet Earth, and I don't. Oh, it's empty, so I can hold it like this. So there's planet Earth. Okay, and planet Earth we could say is moving through space. Okay, but what is space? Space is not a something. It's not like as planet Earth goes along space. We're identifying space with non-obstruction. Doesn't get out of the way. Space is non-obstruction. It's not a something. We can understand it, but we don't, it's not a something. So the planet Earth moves through space, but it's not a something. It's not that space gets out of the way of planet Earth. It's rather that space is an appreciation of non-obstruction. And that exactly is what voidness is. The ultimate perspective, that's what the ultimate perspective is. In the ultimate perspective, you are not actually labeling something. I mean, well, you're labeling something that isn't a something. That's so weird, doesn't it? Okay, so the point is, this is that in the ultimate point of view, although we say open like the space of the sky, the actual word is space, which is merely a label of non-obstruction. And so the ultimate nature of reality could be appreciated as similar to space as in non-obstruction. It is not something that gets out of the way. It's not something that you need to find. So you do not find the voidness in a phenomena. The phenomena is the voidness. So let's go to the Heart Sutra. And I like the Japanese version. It's much easier to memorize. The Bodhisattva of compassion from the depths of Prajna wisdom saw the emptiness of all five skandhas and suffered the bonds that caused him suffering. Know then, form here is only emptiness. Emptiness is only form. Form is no other than emptiness. Emptiness is no other than form. Feeling, thought, and choice, consciousness itself are the same as this. All dharmas here are empty. All of the primal void, none are born or die, or etc. Okay, so it's the Japanese version. You can look it up. I should actually. I'll try to post it because there's a couple versions on Google. And some of them are quite poetic. The one I use is poetic. Some of them are a bit too mechanical. And I'll send that to Losandong to post on the material. But form here is only emptiness. Emptiness is only form. Form is no other than emptiness. Emptiness is no other than form. So it's not that when you look at a phenomena that there's something that, the form here is only emptiness. The TV is only emptiness. TV is not other than emptiness. Okay, so the analogy or the way to bridge that is you start to think about, okay, space is non-obstruction. The planet Earth going through space does not make space get out of the way. Space is just a non-obstruction. The nature of phenomena are empty of any independent self-existence. It's not a something, it's the nature of the phenomena. Now, so we have the ultimate perspective, open like the space of the sky, and we're going to get into that in our meditations in the next session. But ultimate perspective is nothing can appear. We're focused on the nature of reality. It's all one color, called clear light, rather than colored light. It's clear light. If you often wonder what that is, if you're looking at your computer screen right now, okay, pull your attention back like 10 inches. That's clear light. Now, it might have some color if you have a light bulb in your room, like it was soft light or hard light or something like that. But basically, clear light is that you can see your image, or you can see my image or whatever. So you pull your attention back like 10 inches or 10 centimeters or something like that. That's clear light. Okay. Now, if you're focused on the ultimate perspective, you have then open like the space of the sky, clear light. Okay, no forms are appearing because everything is equally interdependent. Nothing's a little more interdependent, less. It's all equally universal interdependence. Okay, and that's the view ultimate. If I'm dropped to then allowing phenomena to manifest or to appear, it's not that they came out of their nature, but things started to have form and imagery, and they were able to be identified and labeled. So play of interdependence merely labeled. If I focus on the phenomena, I can say interdependent merely labeled. If I then just take, and Geshe Dargi said this, he says, if you get the understanding of one phenomena, you've just pervaded the universe. So that when I understand that one phenomena is interdependent, 100% merely labeled, and then you just expand that to the universe, you just it becomes the universal understanding. You have ultimate perspective. When you allow phenomena to manifest again, you have relative perspective. Play of dynamics of interdependence, merely labeled. So that's the start of our Ganges Mahamudra. I haven't even touched the text yet, but I needed to establish a foundation. So what was the foundation I gave you? 5 aggregates. Form is everything physical, like, well, just everything, your body and everything in the universe. Okay, that's that. Okay, and then the 4 of your mind: feelings, perceptions, thoughts, and consciousness. Okay, as a Mahayana Bodhisattva, we will focus on phenomena because we're going to try to be of benefit to sentient beings. We need to develop a wisdom which just doesn't say, I don't care. It's not existent. You know, they do say Hinayana point of view is a little bit nihilistic. Mahayana point of view, well, it's you got to understand it correctly, but it's not nihilistic. You know, anyway, it doesn't matter. Middle path, okay. Right, let's come back to the main thing. Mahayana, then, because we'd like to be beneficial to sentient beings, we have to understand phenomena. First, we analyze phenomena first, okay, and then we have relative perspective. So to review it quickly, 5 aggregates. We're focused on form or phenomena, and we're not focused on the mind, sense of self. Okay, point number 1. So we're focused on form. Next thing is we have relative perspective and ultimate perspective. Relative perspective, we're talking Madhyamika philosophy a little bit. So a universal ocean externally and internally of interdependence, merely labeled, and ultimately open like the space of the sky. Universal ocean of interdependence, merely labeled, ultimate perspective, open like the space of the sky. Nothing can appear more than anything else. That's what you're left with. Okay, so that concludes the class. Now, the thing is, I could open it to questions, you know, as long as they're not too complicated, but as you wish. So if there's anybody with a burning question, if not, though, I'd really like to see you meditate on this for the next week. So when I start the Ganges Mahamudra, a lot of it will be really easy because we're going to put it, you're in this context, okay? So just, it's open to questions, commentaries. So there's an analogy which says the window of opportunity isn't always open. So if there's no questions, the window of opportunity is shut. Okay, anyway, so maybe next week, okay? Or actually, what you could do is send questions to Losang Dondru, and then he can send them to me, and I can answer them a little bit more faster that way, maybe for next week. But anyway, next week we go into Ganges Mahamudra. We will start off with the praise, and then Tilopa's introduction, talking to Naropa, and then the details. And again, I can't do it in 4 weeks. We're not going to do everything, but we're going to cover some of the points. And it's such a good text. It's just really, really good. It's so short, easy to understand, gives you really great technique. And if you're following the way that I'm presenting it, should be pretty easy. It's not too complicated, okay? So that concludes the class for today. Let's dedicate. So one thing, I mean, you know, we have our dedication prayers, but if we just sort of recognize, well, I just spent 1 hour and 8 minutes of my life attending a class. And so I dedicate that towards having a more enlightened life. that 1 hour of my life I dedicated towards a more enlightened life. And what's the meaning of that? Well, it's my offering for the benefit of all. And because I am interdependent, may I be a benefit to all sentient beings. Just as a stick of incense makes the air a little bit more fragrant, may my very nature of my existence make the world a little bit of a nicer place. Okay. So, Lou DeSantis, nice to see you, and Medina, and then so I can't pronounce that. Slove, I can. John and Melanie and Benjamin. Okay, so take good care. I think that's it. So.